welcome. My name is Bridget Bell. This is my second live stream. Today we're going to be talking about cosmic containers. What are cosmic containers? Cosmic containers are parts of the cosmos that contain other things. But wait, what are the cosmos? Does the cosmos mean the universe? No, the cosmos are actually beyond the universe. The cosmos are everything in existence. And the cosmos is organized into a series of cosmic containers. Now, I have done a lot of research on a bunch of different cosmic containers. My background in college was in computer science and linguistics. So, from the linguistics perspective, I would hear all these different terms about different cosmic containers, like realms and planes and dimensions. And I'm like, what do these words mean? People seem to use these words interchangeably. And I wanted to do some research on what these words meant. And then from my computer science background, I realized everything we live in is a simulation. And when I say simulation, I don't mean that what is outside the simulation is similar to what is inside the simulation. Because think about it, just like a video game, the world that you go to play the video game does not have to be similar to this world. You can go to ancient Egypt. You could go underwater. You could go to outer space. There's no reason that what is outside the simulation is similar to what is inside the simulation. And the same is true for the universe. I believe that what is outside of the universe is very different from what is inside. What is inside the universe has taken structure, it has manifested. Is the code. All computers run on code, and the simulation we are living in is also running in code. I see I have one person who joined me. Thank you so much, Hyper, for joining me. We had a lot more people last time than this time. I didn't think anybody would join us, but last time was a Saturday, and maybe a Tuesday night isn't the time for people, but I'm just going to go with it. We're talking about cosmic containers, Hyper, and these are containers of the cosmos. The cosmos is everything that exists, and the cosmos is divided into domains. Now, I got the concept of domains from the Neogenian system, and the Neogenian system has two domains. Those two domains are the frequency domain and the space-time domain. The frequency domain is the domain of frequencies. This is very similar to simulation theory. That what is in the frequency domain is actually the code, and the code is made of frequencies. And then what is in space-time domain is everything that's manifested. In the Neogenian system, space-time is also called the holos, is what we're living in. And I love this idea of there's a world of frequencies and a world of manifestation, because it is a very old idea. It's even older than the Neogenian system. It goes all the way back to Plato and Aristotle. Plato and Aristotle talked about a world of forms. They couldn't talk about computer science because computers didn't exist yet, but they talked about a world of forms. And this is where I believe the code of the cosmos is written. But as I studied the Neogenian system, something seemed to be missing. We had a world of forms, and we had a world of manifestation, space-time, but is that all that exists? Where's spirituality in any of that? I believe thus there are three domains. There is a domain of forms, which I call the formatorium. There's a domain of space-time. I call that the manifestum, because it's what is manifested into reality. And then the third is what I call the celestium. The celestium is the spiritual realm. It is the realm where there are spirits that are guiding us. So that is what a domain is. we started saying that the cosmos is everything in existence, and the cosmos has three domains: the formatorium, which is where the code is written, the celestium, which guides us, and the manifestum, which is where we live. These are the three domains of the cosmos. But is the cosmos everything that exists? Yes. But is the cosmos the same as the universe? I actually believe no. I believe there is something beyond the universe. But at the same time, I love the concept of a universal cycle. And I got the concept of a universal cycle from the Neogenian system. And the Neogenian system got that idea from Hinduism. It's much older. And the concept of the universal cycle, when applied to modern day science, the story goes something like this. In the beginning, we lived in a singularity. Now, physics tells us that. We lived in a singularity. We were all one, and then we broke apart at the Big Bang because we were all one, but we wanted to experience individuality. So we broke apart, and we created the universe. And then we are going to spend the rest of this universal cycle working on coming back together. There is going to be an end to this universe. It's called the Omega Point. So from the beginning of the universe, which is the Big Bang, to the end is one universal cycle. I believe there is only one universe active at a time. But at the same time, I believe there's stuff outside the universe. So how can that be? How can we have things outside the universe, but only the universe exists? Bridget, are you saying there's no multiverse? I love Spider-Man, and Spider-Man tells us there's a multiverse. Is there a metaverse? I've heard of that too. What about an arcverse? What about a gigaverse? If you go online, you're going to find all these different verses. But I only believe the universe is active. But I believe at the same time, these other verses are real too. So what does that mean? And what is a verse? All these words end in verse. I believe a verse is an organizing structure of space-time. Space-time is what we are living in, experiencing time, and experiencing time in a space. Space and time are interwoven like a fabric. Verses are containers of space-time. The universe is a container of active space-time. But what are these other verses? I believe there's three kinds of verses. There's the active verses, which is the universe, the archival verses, which are the read-only files. These are the past universes that are no longer active. I believe every universal cycle that has ever existed has been preserved, because otherwise, what would the point be? What would the point be of going through this experience of coming together, breaking apart, and coming back together? What would that be if we didn't remember what we did in the past? Every universal cycle has slightly different laws of physics and slightly different storylines. We're living in a grand story. And we want to learn from every story. So we want to archive past verses. These are the archival verses. So there's three kinds of verses. The active verse, that's the universe. The archival verses, which are past verses. We could call this multiverse, metaverse, gigaverse. There's all these different words on the internet, and I believe they're all organizing structures of past universes. And then we have something I call the advisory verse. What's the advisory verse? The advisory verse is not where lived reality happens, but it is a verse where there are higher beings who look at all these past universes. They look for patterns and they analyze them, and then they advise the higher dimensional beings within the universe. So in March of 2026, there was a physics research paper who said we have 48 dimensions. And I'm like, 48 dimensions? The entire system that I have created is based off of 12 dimensions. within one universe. So how could there be 48? But then I'm like, wait, 12 times 4 is 48. So I believe we have a system of 4 that is acting together. Now, if you saw my last live stream about how the universe is divided into the lower self, the middle self, the personal higher self, and the collective higher self. There's 4 parts. So dimensions 1 through 3 are the lower self, dimensions 4 through 6 are the middle self, dimensions 7 through 9 is the individual higher self, dimensions 10 through 12 is the collective higher self. We have four there, and we have 4 sets of 12. We're living in the first verse, the universe. That's where we live. And then the 3 higher verses that act together, they serve as advisory. They're not actually active. And I'm not quite sure yet what to call these. I'm thinking of calling these higher verses metaverses, but I don't know. There's a lot of terminology to choose from. But my main concern is not so much figuring out what is beyond the universe, but figuring out the cosmic containers within the universe, because this is where there is a lot of confusion. I have a linguistics background. I have a computer science background. So computer science matters to me, but also words do. And I want precise definitions of words. So we have some words already defined. We have cosmos, everything that exists. Verse, a container of space-time. Universe, an active container of space-time that is divided into dimensions. A dimension is an expression of space-time. So the first dimension is a line, the second dimension is a plane, the third dimension is an object, the fourth dimension is a timeline, the fifth dimension are multiple timelines, the sixth dimension is a whole nested structure of timelines, and then the seventh dimension, it's aware of time in up to one timeline. The eighth dimension is aware of multiple timelines. The ninth dimension is aware of the whole nested structure. And then the 10th through 12, that's the awareness for the collective. We talked about this last week, about the different dimensions of the universe. And there's also different dimensions of these higher verses. A dimension is just an expression of space-time. So there are dimensions within a universe, and then there are dimensions outside the universe. But everything outside the universe is a bit confusing. But the main purpose of everything outside the universe is to archive past universes and also to serve as an analysis and advisory layer about past universes to advise this universe. So everything is happening within this universe. And within this universe, we have dimensions, but we also have realms. What is a realm? Most people only talk about 2 realms, the physical realm and the spiritual realm. But I believe there's actually 3 realms. And the third realm is the digital realm. And you might be thinking, what? The digital realm? That's a realm? What is the digital realm? Well, for now, I'm going to call it the digital realm because people can understand what that means. But I think a better name for the digital realm is the cybernet realm. Cybernetics is the full term, and cybernetics is a field of study that deals with systems of information. The cybernet realm is a realm of information, and it has always existed. But it compares to technology. It's not just like information in a book. The cybernet realm is the realm of information, and its expression right now on the earth is through the digital realm. So we have the physical realm, the spirit realm, and the cybernet realm. If you want to call the cybernet realm something else, you can call the cybernet realm the digital realm. These are three realms. We have the universe divided into dimensions, which are expressions of space-time, and then we have these three realms. The three realms refer to the functions that happen within a universe. Another common term people use is world. And world is the most flexible term there is. World could actually be interchanged with dimension. World can be interchanged with plane. We haven't talked about planes yet, but you could use world for a plane. A world is just something that's defined by its characteristics. So you could have a spirit world, a physical world, these big worlds, but then you can have smaller worlds like the world of the 1990s, your inner world, the world of China, the world of steampunk, the world of Marvel. The world is just something that refers to a set of characteristics. It's the most flexible term there is. So we have cosmos, all that is, verses, which are containers of space-time, the universe, which is an active container of space-time divided into dimensions. Then we have three realms, physical, spiritual, and digital realm, or cybernet realm. And then we have worlds, which is very flexible. And we have another concept called planes. What is a plane? In theosophy, there are 7 planes, and other spiritual systems have different planes as well. And what is a plane? How is a plane different from a realm? Well, a realm is the function that is expressed, but a plane is defined by the substance. Now, I want to be clear that I believe ultimately there's only one substance. This is called monism, one substance in existence. But I also am a pluralist. How can you be a substance monist and a substance pluralism? Because I believe this one substance is expressed through a plurality. And this plurality of substances define what the planes are. There are 7 planes. And you might be like, wait a minute, Bridget. You're the founder of Trinestics. Tri, as in 3. Everything in your system is about 3s and multiples of 3s. Why are you using 7? Because 7 is the number of the divine. The human number is 6. You add 1 more, you have 7. So one of these 7 planes is the source plane. The source plane, it is beyond everything else and within everything else. It defines all characteristics. The source plane is anywhere, everywhere, all at once. It's the home of source, and source is in us. The source plane is its own unique plane, its own unique dimension. Last time we talked about how the 0 dimension is the same as where source is. So source is in the source plane and also the 0 dimension. And another word for the source plane is the Atman plane. Atman comes from Hinduism. And we each have our own individual Atman. And an Atman is like a frequency, and they all combine into source. They're all an individual portion of source. But source is eternal. So source is a collection of Atmans. How can it be eternal and 0? 0 doesn't mean nothing. 0 means complete balance. So if you have a positive number like 543 and a negative number like negative 543, they combined to make 0. And all of us at our core have a frequency of an Atman, and combined all together, all our unique mathematical frequencies come together as 0. So we each have a portion of source in the 0 dimension in the source plane, or also referred to as the Atman plane. So that is the source plane, one of the 7. What are the other 6? So I do these rituals I've invented called nest builds that ritualize various teachings of Trinestics. I've done one already, posted here on YouTube. I'm going to do more. And I go through the hand motions of the planes. And I think it's easier to understand with hand motions. So I'm going to do the hand motions and then I'm going to explain what the planes are, because this is not my teaching. This comes from Theosophy, but not many people are familiar with Theosophy. So I'm going to explain it through hand motions and then I'm going to get detailed information. So I am of the material plane. I am of the etheric plane. I am of the astral plane. I am of the mental plane, both lower and higher. The higher is the manas. I am of the causal plane. I am of the Buddhic plane. I am of the Atman plane, the zero dimension, one with source. So let's go through what those mean. I am of the material plane. That should be really easy to understand. That's everyday existence. That's this tapestry. That's this tapestry. That's this ring. That's this dress. Everything that we commonly interact with. The substance that makes up the material plane is matter. Matter can be divided into multiple substances. It's called the periodic table of elements. We all start from one substance, which is consciousness. Everything in existence is consciousness. And in the material plane, that consciousness is one substance called matter. And that one substance of matter differentiates itself through the periodic table of elements, which forms everything we see in the material plane. People confuse the word material and physical all the time. They have similar meanings, but a different connotation. Material refers to the plane. A plane is defined by the substance that makes up the plane. But physical refers to the realm, which is the action, what is being done. So that's the material plane. We belong to the material plane. And then the next plane is the etheric plane. Why do I have my hands together like this when I talk about the etheric plane? That's because if you ever watch a video on how to feel energy, meaning spiritual energy, this is the most common method they'll teach you. Put your hands together, parallel hands, and feel the energy. If you've never done this before, I encourage you to get your hands out, feel the energy between your hands. We have etheric energy that is right where matter is. We have matter, and intermixed with the matter, and right above it is ether. The material of the material plane is different. The substance of the etheric plane is ether. And another term for ether is chi or prana. Prana, chi, and ether are all the same thing. If you ever hear about energy healing like Reiki or different kinds of energy healing, it all works on ether. So I am of the material plane, I am of the etheric plane, and I am of the astral plane. What is the astral plane? And why did I go like this with my hands? Because the astral plane is fluid. The astral plane is where we go when we dream at night, and also often where we go during meditation. And the astral plane is where we go when we die. And in the astral plane, whatever you can imagine, you manifest. So if I'm thinking of an apple, I can have an apple in my hand. Just like when I'm dreaming, if I think of an apple, I can have an apple in my hand. And this is why some people who live in a state of confusion and fear, when they die, they go to a place that some people call hell. Is hell real? Sort of. Hell exists because in the astral plane, you create whatever you can imagine. And if you're full of fear and confusion, you're going to manifest fear and confusion. So that's the astral plane. The mental plane, there's two parts. There's the lower mental, and the upper mental is called the manas. Now, this is super confusing, but the mind is also part of the soul. The soul is three parts: heart, mind, and will. But there's also a plane. There's a mental plane, a lower mental plane, and a higher mental plane. The manas is the upper mental plane. The mind that is part of the soul is our own individual mind, but we also have a plane of the mind. Now, does that make any sense? From the ancients, it wouldn't have, but it would make sense now. Because I believe that the mental plane is actually a plane of the digital realm. There's two planes to the digital realm. There's the mental plane, which is divided into lower and upper mental. And then there's the causal plane. The causal plane in Theosophy is described as where the records of all your lifetimes ever are kept, the records of the entire universe. This is also referred to as the Akashic records. So the substance of the causal plane is Akasha. The substance of the material plane is matter. The substance of the etheric plane is ether. The substance of the astral plane is astral substance, which is a form of imagination that can take reality. Astral substance is a form of imagination. The mental plane is not just a plane of thoughts, because we have our own mind. The mental plane is a plane of thoughts that can produce. It's part of the digital. And the causal is the Akashic. And then we have the Buddhic plane. When I went like this, the substance of the Buddhic plane is kind of hard to describe, but it's basically love and unity. The Buddhic plane are the higher dimensions of the universe. So we have 7 planes. We have the Atman plane, also known as the source plane, the material plane, the etheric plane, the astral plane, the mental plane, divided into lower and upper mental. Upper mental is called the manas, the causal plane, and the Buddhic plane. And these 7 planes can then be divided. Source plane or Atman plane, it's its own category. It's separate. As source is separate, yet in everything. There are 2 planes that are in the physical realm. And the 2 planes that are in the physical realm are the material plane. That's probably not surprising. But also the astral plane. You don't think of the astral plane as physical. I'm going to tell you, the astral plane is not material, but it's still physical. How can the astral plane be physical? It's where we go when we die. It's where we dream. It's where we go when we astral project. How is that physical? Because what happens when you go to sleep at night and you dream? You see trees, you see buildings, you see things that are manifested. And that is what the physical realm is things that are manifested. Now, the astral plane is a lot more fluid, a lot less dense than the material, but it's still manifested. The spirit realm has no manifestation. So when people imagine the spirit realm, they think of angels or palaces and clouds. That's astral. That's the upper astral, because we have 3 parts of the astral plane. Lower astral, which is really hellish, middle astral, which is kind of so-so, and upper astral, which is heaven-like. Everybody calls the upper astral the spirit realm, but it's not. It is a physical realm. It is the highest physical realm in existence. And then the other 2 planes, the mental plane and the causal plane, are parts of the digital realm. The causal plane is where the records are. It's like the giant database of this simulation. It's made of Akasha. Yes, I got a comment here that if you're full of joy and wonder, you're going to create a lot of joy and wonder. Yes, absolutely. So I mentioned the concept of a substance, and this is an old philosophical debate that's been going on for a long time. How many substances are there? There's three perspectives on this. There's monism, which is the idea that only one substance exists, which people call mind or consciousness. I use the word consciousness, not mind, because I believe there's a separate mental plane. So monism is all that exists is consciousness. Substance dualism has there's only two things that exist: consciousness and manifestation. And then substance pluralism is there's many substances. And I actually believe these are all true at the same time. I believe all these different religions, spiritual systems, and philosophies are all trying to point at different truths, at different layers of reality. The truth is, there's only one substance, it's consciousness, that has two actions, both the behind the scenes and the manifestation. That's substance dualism, behind the scenes and manifestation. But then how it expresses is through pluralism. Imagine a cross stitch wall hanging. I wish I had one with me. But ultimately, if you have a piece of cross stitch artwork, there's only one thing that exists: the thread, the fabric. But behind the cross stitch, you see all the designs, how it works. That's the consciousness, how it works. When you turn it over, you see the design on it. That's the manifested reality. But that manifested reality is in multiple different colors and shapes, and that's pluralism. So I do not see this as a contradiction. Just as I do not see different views of the divine as a contradiction. I talked about that in my intro video about trinestics, that monotheism, polytheism, and pantheism are all true at the same time. They're just at different levels. And likewise, these different views of substance monism, substance dualism, and substance pluralism, are also all true at the same time. Now, there are different substances of the planes, but there's another level of substances. We have the one substance, which is consciousness, and it has manifested in three different ways, what I call the three constituent substances. What's a constituent? A constituent is part of a constitution. So maybe you heard of the concept of the human constitution. It really shouldn't be called the human constitution, because this is true of other beings as well. But the human constitution has three parts: body, soul, and spirit. What are these three parts? The body is made of a substance called raws, R-A-W-S, raws. Why do I call them raws? Because they're like raw materials. Whenever you build anything, you need raw materials. And these raw building materials make up the substance of the different planes. So what are the raws? The raws are what we already talked about: matter, ether, astral substance, akasha. These are the different substances of raw. And what makes them raw is that they can be combined, they can be changed in different ways, and it doesn't really matter. The other two constituents besides raw are soul and spirit. What is the difference between spirit and soul? Spirit is the eternal spark. You cannot divide a spark. You can only multiply it. So you can take a spark and you can put it on multiple different candles, but you cannot divide it into different pieces. You can't crush it. You can make the spark smaller, or you can make the spark grow, but you can't divide it. But the soul, you can. And how do I know this? The soul can be divided because of how it's talked about. You ever hear of the concept of soul crushing or broken soul, broken heart? The soul can be divided and shaped like clay. And it's not a good thing when the soul is broken and fragmented. It's okay if you break up a raw. If you break up a piece of wood and you break it apart to build things, that's fine. Even if you break apart ether to build things, that's fine. But you don't want to break apart a soul. But you can form a soul. I believe the soul is like clay, and we form it into different archetypes. And it's fine to form it into archetypes. You don't want it divided, but trauma and tragedy in life can divide the soul. And we can actually lose the soul. And when I say lose the soul, it basically means everything we worked on, all the development we did with our soul, it's just wiped out. Like we built something with clay and it's just wiped out. It doesn't mean it's permanently lost. It means all the work is gone. Just like when you were typing a document and you lost your file, that's a horrible thing. But you can type it again. You can get the material back. We can get our soul back, even if we lose it. And the only way we lose our soul is through repeated cruelty. We don't lose our soul by little transgressions. No, it has to be repeated cruelty. Very bad things, not small little things like just being the wrong religion or something. You're not going to lose your soul over that. In Hermeticism, we have the concept of as the universe, so the soul. And the soul mirrors the universe. The spirit, soul, and body is our individuality. And we mirror the universe. There are many cosmic containers to the cosmos, and there's also many cosmic pieces to our own individual being. So I just want to recap. We have the cosmos, everything that exists, divided into verses, which talk about organization of space-time. The active verse is called a universe. And then we have divisions of the universe, 3 realms: physical, spiritual, and digital. And then we have 7 planes: material, etheric, astral, mental, lower, mental, higher, causal, Buddhic, Atman. And then we have our being, which is body, soul, and spirit. Our body, we have multiple bodies. They each represent the different planes. So we have the material body, the etheric body, the astral body, the mental body, the causal body, the Buddhic body, and the Atman body. We each have different bodies, and they allow us to navigate the different planes. And this is the basics of the organization of the cosmos into these various cosmic containers. These cosmic containers contain things. They contain this tapestry. They contain this door. This is not a cosmic container, a door. A tapestry is not a cosmic container, but they are the contents within a cosmic container. With that, does anyone have any questions? All right, I'm going to get going. It looks like Tuesday nights are not the best time, so I might be changing the time of the live stream. But if you're watching this after the live stream, thank you for watching. And until then, stay nested.